Hey, what's up, everybody? My name's Mike Toledo. We have a special guest named Tom Price, which you'll be hearing about very soon. I just wanted to let you know this isn't a video that's got a lot of action. I would pay attention to what Tom says. He's got a lot of good information about glue pulling. It's not continuous. You're going to hear a little bit of his background, stories, glue he likes, things he's been dealing with in the glue pulling since it came out. So I think it's very interesting. I definitely consider Tom an industry leader. He's been around a long time. And if you ever need to get a hold of him, contact him at Tom Price on Facebook. You should be able to get a hold of him. And I hope you enjoy this interview. And please, when you have a moment, just sit back and watch and check it out. Hope you guys like it. Take care. Hey, welcome everybody. My name is Mike Toledo, and we have a special guest named Tom Price. Now, Tom Price is an industry leader in the PDR world, and with over 20 years in the paintless dent removal industry as well. Now, I welcome you, Tom, and thanks for taking the time to chat about the specific topic called glue pulling. And also, congrats on the award of the Lifetime Award, Achievement Award at MTE. So I just want to say thanks a lot. And yeah, you've put a lot in this industry, and I think it's worth mentioning you. So what's going on? Where you been?
Well, I did a little bit of training this winter. I've kind of scaled that back. Transitioning into a new part of paintless dent removal. I'm joining another company in process of doing that, and I'll divulge that at a later time. But right now, I just moved into a new home in Colorado, and just getting myself, I'm all pretty much ready for hail season. That should be starting anytime, and that's kind of what my whole career's focused on. The last probably 15 years of it has been pretty much chasing hail. So just all ready to go, man. Just waiting for the big bang to happen.
Well, great, because I mean, you've been doing this, for a while, and obviously we're talking about glue pulling, and I'm sure you use that obviously a lot in the hail world. But now, Tom, give us a little bit of background before we get more into the details of glue pulling. How did you start? How did you get into the game? What year did you do it?
Okay. I was working at a body shop, Mike, working for my best friend on the earth. We've known each other since kindergarten. And I was the assistant manager, but kind of not really going anywhere in life to speak of. And saw a blind ad in a newspaper it said, looking for someone with amazing eye for detail to market new process to body shops, car dealerships. And normally I'd always told my wife, don't apply to a blind ad in the newspaper. It's selling cemetery plots or life and something no one wants to hear from you, Amway, something. Sorry if I'm insulting anybody, but anyways, I wasn't interested in those, but the ad just said DWI, and I'm like, well, I don't know what that is. Months later, I heard back, and it was actually Dent Wizard International, which in 1992, really no one knew much about paintless dent removal, and I'd never even heard of Dent Wizard, but they had been going 9 years in the U.S., and so I went through their screening process, which back then was very, very intense. I mean, you had to pass criminal background test, drug test, credit background test, about everything you could, eye test, okay? And anyways, ended up going to Florida for training. This was 1992, and went through an intense 6-week class down there, and it was like boot camp, man. I'm telling you, you get there, and the whole Florida thing was different for me. Natalio Valderrama, who was the founder of Dent Wizard, spoke in very broken English back then, so it was hard to understand what he was saying. And again, I'm from the Midwest, so I wasn't ever been around Hispanics too much, and so it was hard for me to pick up on that accent. And took his class, and I tell you what, back then in the early 90s, Dent Wizard was they were really the cat's meow. I mean, they really screened you good. When you came out of training, you were a really good technician. And so I thank them. I thank Lido for kind of being the grandfather of PDR in this country. He's the first documented guy going back all the way back to 1983. And, Dent Wizard's kind of moved on into a more corporate environment since those days. But back then, I was one of the original 100 Dent Wizards they talk about, the original guys. And so I really got a good background in understanding paintless dent removal and doing quality work. And so I'm real thankful for my roots of, what they taught me, and it made me what I am today. And So that's kind of how I got started. In '92, you were like a rock star back then. I mean, you go back into the early '90s yourself. You remember when people were like beg you to come, come to my lot and work. And now sometimes the dealer market is so saturated, they look at you like you're an alien, like another dent guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah.
you
And
remember
yep.
before it was so commoditized.
I had a chance to meet Lito. He seemed like a real nice guy. He's real humble. Actually, I tried to get
Oh
an
yeah.
interview with him, and he declined. He kindly declined. He wasn't rude or anything. He says, "You know what? I don't need to be an interview. Just I just don't really. I'm kind of just I'm just relaxed and retired. If you don't mind, I'd rather not just do the interview." I said, "Okay, no problem. I understand." And
Yeah.
a lot of guys gave him a lot of respect there, and I just saw it was like the Godfather over there.
He's the real guy, man. I mean, we all came out of him in one way or another in this country. I mean, or somewhere, touched roots with him or so. Anyways, yep.
Well, good. Listen, Tom. Okay, so now we're going to get into this part. But by the way, I have to agree with you on the Dent Wizard training. I've got a lot of friends who are ex-Dent Wizards, and they're hell of a techs. I mean, hell of a techs. Guys in the first generation, second generation training.
You
So
worked against one of them, Tom Hennepin. That was my partner here from Illinois. He was a very good tech. I don't know if I've kind of lost touch with him, but he was right in your backyard there for a while.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I barely even got to speak to him. I know who exactly you're talking about. So, yep. But anyhow, so let's talk about the glue pulling. Okay. When I first heard about it, Tom, it took me a while to actually kind of like trust
Yeah.
that it actually worked. I heard about it, but I was like, it's a gimmick, and yada yada. But then I started seeing other people using it, and it started being more successful. Now, when it first came out, Tom, were you skeptical as well, or did you
Oh
just get
yeah.
right into it?
Yeah, I'm an old body guy first. I mean, I was skeptical about PDR, you know what I mean? Like you can't push a dent out and not crack the paint. So I'm coming out of that in the early '90s. Then glue pulling, starts to hit its stride maybe 10 years ago in this country. And my first exposure to it was at the Nace Body Shop show. And I remember seeing the Worth guys, Worth out of Germany, WURTH,
Yeah.
great German company, great products. I knew them from my auto body background. And they're showing these glue tabs, and they got this panel off a door sitting up on a stand at the Nace show. And they got a guy there who's obviously just a corporate guy. He doesn't, not a hands-on guy. And he's trying to glue the tab to the panel and try to pull these dents. And he's leaving these giant, pull marks, look like a big nipple pulled on the car. He's butchering up this door. And me and some other dent guys are standing in the back, and we're just kind of chuckling like, what do these guys think they're doing? They're never going to be able to get this to a, world-class technology. And boom, a few years later, here we are, you know what I mean? Look, I laughed at PDR the first time I saw it when it was just a guy selling a bag of tools. Before I even knew about Dent Wizard, this guy was selling a bag of tools and said, yeah, you can take this class and learn how to do it. And we're like, well, show us. He's like, I don't know how to do it. And so we called that snake oil, you know what I mean, in the early 90s. And then glue pulling comes along another 8-10 years later, and I'm laughing at that going, there's no way you can snap. I come from a body shop background. I know what paint is. There's no way you can pull a dent through the clear, the base, the primer, the sealer, and the e-coat and not separate that paint and pull that off. And then, okay, well, they proved to me you can pull a dent on a factory painted door, but I'm like, no way you could ever get that good enough to sell as PDR. And here we are. Okay. So now it's past small stuff. It's into starting big dents. It's into large creases. I mean, what we're doing, Mike, isn't rocket science. I mean, we're not doing brain surgery, but it's pretty amazing if you understand what we can do with metal. I mean, and what you can do with glue stuff. I remember 10, 12 years ago when glue was first getting out, people are like, oh, you'll never be able to glue pull aluminum. Well, I glue pull aluminum every day of my hail. You know what I mean? It's a little bit harder. You learn how to do it. You learn your tricks. You learn to go with a bigger size tab or whatever. And then first time that I started, here's why I started messing with glue, Mike, and I might be a little bit off topic
No,
here, but
go help yourself.
a good buddy of mine said to me years ago in the auto body industry, in the PDR industry, Tom Welker, and he said, I can see this glue, and this is probably 10 years ago. He said, I can see where whoever gets good at glue with all the how hard automotive trim had gotten with the German headliners and the Volkswagens and all the different exotic cars, and we were struggling how to get trim down. And he said, I can see where whoever becomes good with glue is going to be the winner in this industry, because you're just not going to have to deal with as much taking stuff down. The less you take apart, the less you break. That's my rule in this business. Okay, so you're looking at OEM paint. Man, if I could glue that instead of taking it apart, and I'm not a real mechanical guy, so I'm really enticed by this. Well, shortly after that, I also injured my rotator cuff in my pushing arm, and I'm real left-hand dominant, and a lot of pain involved in twisting door dings, etc.
Sure.
So I was at this hail site, and I was a little small town in Indiana, and they only would book in like one X amount of car a day. They'd never let a car hang over. I couldn't keep it overnight, so I just get this. And it was never a great amount of money, but I had to be there 8 hours a day to write estimates and to be there for the insurance people. So I was sitting there, and I remembered what my buddy Tom Welkard said, and I decided, you know what? I'm going to start gluing everything I can glue on this car and see what I can do with glue. And I was working with a very good hail tech named Nick Hawkins back at the time. And he's like, you're crazy. I'm like, I'm going to start gluing this stuff on my side of the car. You do what you want to do on your side of the car. We both got to be here 8 hours. We're going to make X amount of money. I'm going to sit here and glue, and you do what you want to do. So first few cars we did, he was much faster down his side of the car. And each car I would glue everything on the side panels, even the door dings. And I started chuckling because I'm like, I cannot believe I just got this dent this sharp through the body line with a round tab. This is a long time ago. This is like 2002 or 3, okay? And he come over, he's like, I can't believe you got that. And I kind of got excited about PDR because, you get bored pushing after a while. You know that. I mean, you do a lot of world-class exotic stuff. You do amazing stuff. But still, after a while, just the everyday grinding of pushing gets kind of boring. And you got to admit, I think you're fascinated with glue too. You're like, I cannot believe I could start this giant dent with glue, no tool marks, pull out 2/3 of the dent in one pull, and bam, now there's no pressure left. I can push, I can tool it, So that's kind of how I started with the glue. I was hurt. I had time on my hands. I'm like, let's just push this window. How far does this window go? You know what I mean? Where does the glue pulling curve end? Well, we don't know still to this day. But I started gluing, and I got faster and faster. And by the time the storm was over, Nick said to me, he goes, this is the craziest thing ever. You can glue your side of the car as fast as I can push my side of the car. And he goes, and there's no marks in your... when you pull a dent and you get it nice, I mean, it pulls that whole area, and then you're just tapping down gently from the top where you can finish. Your arms are at full length.
Yeah.
Really nice to look back. I love finishing from the top because you can get your arms stretched out and your head back. So it just started like that, and I kind of got reinvigorated, to tell you the truth, Mike. Like, hey, where does this end? Like, then I remember the first time I came out with my glue pull video, and I put creases on there, and people put it up on YouTube. And that's when we had open comments before people would put rude things up. And I'm sure you've had to go where you got to approve them first, because people call you every name in the book like they don't believe you're doing that. So I showed some glue pulling creases, and people are like, you're full of crap. You made that up. You edited that. I'm like, no, man. I played around with it. And that was with round tabs. Then we got to crease tabs. And then I would start doing, and people, here's what you got to understand. Just because you can't do it doesn't mean other guys can't. And I've had to learn that in this business too. I mean, there's stuff you see with Kaz on the internet or whatever. You see this stuff and you're like, it's not possible. Well, that stuff is possible.
Yeah.
So the glue end, again, because it doesn't require any physical, doesn't hurt anything when you're glue pulling, just squeezing with your hand all day. So I really just started gluing more and more and more, and I really enjoy it. It's I always kind of like to have separation in the hail market. Before glue was out, I always had the best tools, so I was a little bit better than my competitor because I had better shave tools. Well, then glue came out, and I was kind of depressed because I'm like, now everybody's going to be able to get to that dent that I used to be the only guy that could get my tool in there. You know what I mean? Well, same thing of separation again there too. who can pull a big dent, who can pull it clean, who can get all the ripples out of it, who can not get it stuck, who can pull a crease, who can start a big dent. Those are all things that are skills. And I think even as I've watched, you're kind of the king of YouTube as far as all the different tutorials. And I've seen a lot of stuff you've done. I'm like, see, Mike gets it. He gets that it's not just for small dents. This is for starting big dents. You can finish dents with glue. You can, where does the end go? So I'm kind of excited about glue. To me, it's the most exciting part of PDR in the last 10 years. And I started doing it for health reasons, but now I just love it. And if I have time, I glue as much as I can glue on side panels, not on top panels. Top panels, I'll push whatever I can get a tool to. But, when you're hanging upside down or whatever where your arm gets twisted, that hurts my rotator cuff. So I glue all the sides. People don't believe me when I tell them I this year not very, very good. They all passed.
Yeah.
You might be surprised what you can do, even getting sharp dents out with glue. So,
well, that's where I was gonna go into the next topic too. Tom, is me personally, I hate I hate messing with little dings. If I can tool it, I'm gonna tool it. I try to tell my technicians that. I like doing the big dent stuff, with the glue. What's really impressive as of right now is the Kiko tabs, those big super tabs. I mean, I know they've been out for a few years. It's just now they're really catching on. Now, how often do you glue? I mean, Tom, do you glue, what do you think qualifies as a dent? I know you say you'd rather do side panels than top panels, but I mean, what's your opinion on that? When do you pick up a glue gun? I mean, you rather just snap it and bang, be done with it? Or are you that good at it? Or what do you think?
If there's 30 dents on a quarter panel that are nickel size and smaller, I can glue pull those 30 dents probably as fast as most guys can push them. It's just, I set 8-10 tabs at a time. I get so proficient in the middle. Remember, now I have a couple advantages. Let's qualify this first of all. I'm a hail guy.
Yeah.
I always have a controlled environment. I feel bad for door ding guys that are out in the sun, in the cold. I was a door ding guy for 5 years as a dent wizard, so I know about controlling the environment just for pushing. But for glue pulling, that's got to be really miserable. You guys got to switch glues. You got to cool the panel down. You got to heat the panel up. You got to stay out of the sun. I don't have that. I'm working in a body shop. I have a controlled temperature of probably 70 to 90 degrees. I stay with pretty much one glue. The temperature, once the car gets in and cools down, it's going to be the same temperature the whole time I'm working. So I got a big advantage on that as far as I understand, like, when you're saying you don't like to do small dings, is it because you don't like to have to set all your glue stuff up? Is that why it is? You're I could do this.
Well, yeah, you're probably right. I'm a little lazy on that. And then, it's just, to me, it just takes more time. I mean, if you got a little pit in that ding, it's just going to take you time to snap it. And if you just miss off just a little bit, you're tapping it. But if you can get a tool behind it, you're done. Well, for me it is. I'm done in 5 minutes, and then I'm spending 15 minutes glue pulling it. So,
but I've just done it so much. I'm the guy that's spending 5 minutes gluing it, and it's just. And again, because side panels and whatnot require twisting, that's what hurts a torn labrum, a rotator cuff. That's what really hurts my arm. So I'll glue just because I know I can glue it now. I know on OEM paint I'm pretty well good. I'm not going to have delamination issues, okay? And then being an coming out of a body shop and body shop management, I always look very carefully for repainted panels. So I seldom ever get fooled like, oh, man, I know that was aftermarket paint and I pulled it. It just doesn't happen because I'm so conscious of that between looking at texture and all the different ways that you tell if a car's been painted. So, people ask that all the time, like, what about aftermarket paint? Well, I grew up in a body shop, so it is not hard for me to tell, even in a world-class body shop, what's been finished. And that's what I did for 2 years of my life, was color sanding cars for texture to match OEM paint. So you know what you're looking for. You can tell really quick. Even at a world-class shop, I can tell if it's been refinished. Sure. So I do have an advantage coming out of my body shop background, but I still like the thrill of being able to say I can glue it, and probably glue it as fast as some guys can push it.
Yeah,
So
that's super remarkable,
it
Tom,
actually
because
puts some thrill in my game. Do you understand? Because
yeah,
I'm on the look, Mike. I'm on the downhill climb here, buddy. Okay, I'm 53 years old. You know, my eyes aren't what they used to be. You know, I can't work the long hours. This is a young man's game. Let's face it. In the Hale world, I mean, they get these kids my son age, like Luke at 25. Them kids can go 12-hour days, you know, weeks straight. The old man here can't do that. I gotta make, you know, hay while the sun shines. Glue is preserving my shoulder as long as it is. Someday I'll have to actually take 6 months off, 4 to 6 months, and rehab this shoulder and have, you know, rotator cuff surgery. I've just been putting it off till it gets where I can't take it any longer. But I like glue.
yeah,
You know, like, where is the end? You know, and
yeah,
even when I worked at Michael Hand's shop in Boulder there in 2008, when I came alongside and worked his shop for a while, I was doing big stuff with glue. And shocked how much this is before we had Black Plague tabs. This is before we had Kiko big tabs, the big millipede tabs. I mean, I was doing it with cut down Worth tabs and putting 6-8 tabs in different directions and trying to pull and, you know, make my own, you know, like a stress plate myself, messing around with stuff like that. And you just learn, hey, this is amazing that, first of all, OEM paint can stick through that. That's the first amazing thing. I mean, if you really think you're pulling a deep dent in metal with stress on it, and the paint stays on it, that's pretty amazing if you think about that. You're pulling through that paint to pull the metal up, and that paint has such great compressive strength that it stays on there. It's
Tom, did you think? I mean, let's bring up another thing, because you kind of said something earlier about, you know, you don't pull, you know, factory finish because you understand, you have an eye for it, and I do too. I look for the certain orange peel to match all the way through. But I pulled, and you tell me if I'm correct, but I try Subaru and I pull the paint. If there's 10 Subarus, I'm gonna pull like 7 of them on the brand new paint. You know, I don't know about the latest brand new Subarus right now, but
okay.
It's not usually the first time. It's usually the second or third time, and bang, the paint comes right off. And now, what's your opinion about that, or your experience on those Subarus?
Well, you know, I can't say that I've had delamination issues on Subarus. I know the Subaru metal pushes and pulls different than about in. No one goes and picks a Subaru lot like voluntarily. I mean, let's face it, the access is bad. The metal does not act like normal American or German or even Japanese steel. It does not act like that. It acts like some weird alloy. But I haven't had delamination issues on any specific models, but I have had this. When I have pulled factory paint, I've noticed it's been a lot on pearl colors, on tri-stage paints. Now you got to remember, tri-stage has an extra layer in there. You're going to have, of course, you're going to have your primer. You're going to have your base coat, okay, which is your color. Then you're going to have a pearl coat. Then you're going to have a clear. Now you've increased the mils on that thickness of that paint. I think it's because there's more film build thickness that you separate pearls. I pulled more OEM pearl, not necessarily any manufacturers, but just more white pearl OEM paint than any other color. And that's what I start looking at. When I start looking at a tri-stage, I go, I want maybe back down the tab size, and maybe I'm going to squeeze this with my puller and look and watch instead of doing a big snap.
Yeah.
Big snap's always going to remove it. I mean, if you're using a slide hammer, you are going to take off more paint than if you're using a mini lifter. I guarantee you, because there's more shock in a slide hammer than you can mechanically create by squeeze resistance.
Yeah, and that brings something up too. It reminds me, because when not too long, a Subaru, okay, we were slide hammering, and I told the guy your paint might come off, you know, yada yada. But I was real careful, because there was only one way I could slide hammer it. I tried to do the flat bar, but I needed that pop. And anyways, I told the technician who was pulling, and I said, I want you to spray some alcohol, and I want you to peel very slowly the glue off the panel. Don't just rip it off. And he did. He pulled it really slow, and then the next time I wasn't paying attention to what he was doing, and he ripped it right off, and the paint came with it. So that was a Subaru. So I think we could have saved it if we would have just pulled that glue off really carefully too.
Yep, but Haste makes waste. We all do it. I do it. Sometimes I get so nonchalant with glue. You know how you get when you're pushing a dent, and and Mike, you're a great teacher. I've seen it. I've seen pictures of your students' work, so I know you can train. When you train your students certain, rotational methods, there's certain ways you push, right? And then you find when you're out pushing by yourself, you're like, you're a great tech, and you'll be pushing, you'll be like, I'm cobbling this dent up, and you stop and you go, I'm not even following the rules that I teach my students. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Find the center of the dent, respect the dent, take and put a little pressure, see how it starts. You just get in because you think you're the awesome dent guy, and everything becomes a matter of fact, and you start crunching up a dent. And I do that, so I'm sure it's happened to you. And you go, you know what? I teach my students not to do what I'm doing, but I'm not respecting this car. I'm just nonchalantly in there pushing because I think I have this awesome talent. But you know what? The good news is we do have the talent to recover when we decide to follow the basic rules that we teach everybody else. But same thing can happen even with glue. You take stuff too nonchalant, you can pull more paint than you need to.
Yep.
Okay? I mean, and I've done that. Just like, you know what? I'm a great glue guy. I'm just gonna snap that thing, and then I'm like, oh, and there's nothing to me. There's like, other than breaking laminated glass, there's no worse feeling than pulling paint, because you're like, I come out of a body background, but I can't really put that back.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's big and round, and they know it's you, dude. There's no hiding. It isn't a little chip. It's usually the size of the tab you're pulling. So you can't can't smudge your way. You can't fudge your way through that. You're like,
You mean
I
you
poured
haven't
paint,
put you don't have a little bit of super glue on the back of your toolbox? So
No.
you put a piece right back in there.
No, but it's awful to look down on the tab and see that awesome paint chip, that perfectly round circle sitting on the tab, and you're always kind of wondering, can I reattach? No, there's no reattaching that. It's a bad feeling, but you know what? I had a guy get really mad at me once for pulling paint on his car, and I explained to him, it's not like I did that on purpose, sir, but let me explain to you. You already had a dent. He wanted me to pay to paint the panel, and I'm like, I don't owe you anything. I go, you already had a dent that had to be refinished if I couldn't do it anyway. So I'm sorry your paint came off. I told you it might come off. We did discuss that. But I don't owe you to paint it. It was already damaged. That is the only other fallback method. You understand? We're not the last end repair in this business. Auto body is the last fallback. So if it was already dented and I can't fix it through glue pulling and something happens, I don't owe him anymore. He'd still have to have that painted anyway if I wasn't there. So I don't owe for that. Okay. So just one of those things sometimes people get upset when the paint comes off, but I always tell them, I promise you, I didn't do this to wreck your day.
Well,
So
yeah, I know, and it happens. That's why, and I try to tell people, hey, if you have a feeling, even if you're going to glue pull, I would recommend, hey, you let them know, write a little waiver on your invoice, and have them, have them initial it and saying that you're free of any kind of wrongdoing if your body shop repair if it doesn't go right.
Sure.
Anyways, let's now, Tom, you're kind of mentioning that you're in a controlled environment, but I know that you're in different parts of the country or even different parts of the world, but sometimes that it might be a little bit different humidity. You could be in Arizona or dry heat, or you could be in the Midwest where it's friggin' humid as heck. Is there a specific glue that you recommend or a combination?
Again, glues are like toilet paper or paper towels. Everybody's got their brand they go to, or whatever. I mean, I'm a big again, I'm usually between 70 and 90 degrees of the ambient temperature in the room, and you let the car cool to that temperature, the surrounding area. But I'm using Anson Black, and I'll use Dent Gear Black. And Dent Gear basically copied Anson Black. I mean, they chemically, took it to a refractory to get the composition. There's no patents on glues, but those two glues work really good for me. If I get really, really hot once in a while, I mean a really hot temperature, like down in Texas or something, or Arizona, I'll switch to the Dent Out Red, okay, which is a high temperature, high humidity glue. But I can usually get that temperature where I like, so I stay with the Anson Black. Now, I've also been trying that, and you were at the trade show. Did you see the company named Dent Glue there at the show?
I did, yes.
Okay. I bought his variable speed glue gun, okay, awesome gun. I also bought his Black Mamba glue, okay, and named after, I don't know, Kobe Bryant's called the Black Mamba, but this glue is called Black Mamba. It is a great glue. It comes in a aluminum foil pack that you can reseal. And for those that don't know it, if you leave glue exposed to air very long, especially hail guys, we leave them, off season, that glue becomes brittle and it loses its elasticity. So being in a resealable foil bag is really a nice thing for glue. It keeps your glue fresh. But anyways, that being said, he also had a solvent-free glue, kind of like what Ultra has, that silver glue they've had for a while.
Yeah, the
Okay,
expensive stuff.
he had it in the orange and the amber, and he was demonstrating it at the right on that hood there at the show. I was amazed how hard that pulled. Now, I have not had enough time to spend with that, like in a hail environment. I did some with training with it, but I do like the fact there's no mess. It just comes off with your fingernail, and it still pulled good enough to do most everyday glue pulling in the hail environment. So, that was I don't even know how I got off on that topic, but that was another area of glue that interests me. Anytime you're solvent free, we're not spraying any denatured or anything again over and over, which itself on a hot surface can actually leave rings. Okay, the denatured on a hot surface with hot glue put down can leave those rings. Okay, we all panic and we start sanding on them and whatnot. And if you understand this, if you pull that car out in the sun or put a heat lamp on it, in 10 minutes it's gone. That ring is gone. That we all think we wrecked the guy's car, okay? But
Yeah.
didn't wreck the
And
guy's
that's a
car.
good. And I'm
Just
glad
like
you brought that
get
up,
out
Tom.
Section cup. Section cup rings too, same thing.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. You brought some interesting points up there. I'm sure people are going to appreciate what you just mentioned right there. Now, as far as tabs, what tabs do you like? I mean,
Okay.
I have my preference. I mean, I'm sure you got some of
Okay.
yours, right?
Here's my favorites. I really like the Kiko tabs, and I really like the Kiko ice tabs that are out, especially in the nickel and quarter size. The dimes don't seem to pull any better than the regular Kikos, which still pull awesome. But I really find those Kiko ice is what I'm using. Again, nickel and quarter sized in the ice, and then just the regular dime size Kiko. Okay, the golf ball. Everybody knows what they like. They're blue. They look like a golf ball. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I also use the ones from Brian Evers at PDR Outlet, the orange ones that look like a shrinking hammerhead.
Yeah.
You familiar with those?
I haven't really got to experiment with those, but I know who he is, what they are.
Pull really, really hard too. Now, here's something I want to bring up. Everybody thinks, this is just a little educational point I've noticed. Everybody thinks the texture has to do with how hard a tab pulls. It's not true. What has to do with it is the material you're using. Because I'll prove that to you. Look at the Black Plague tabs. They're smooth. Look at Jerry Blem's round red. Crease tabs that are red and smooth. They are smooth as a baby's butt, and they pull like a son of a gun. So it's not the texture or design; it is the material that sticks to the car. Okay, and if you understand what's in plastic that we make tabs out of, there's glass strands and glass beads that go in glue tabs. Okay, the more glass that's in it, the more it's like a poker chip. Some of the old Dent gear tabs, if you dropped them, they went clink, 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 clink. They had too much glass in them. Okay, they're hard, but they snap because they're too brittle. Okay, then you've seen some of the ones that are real plasticky. They stretch out, the neck stretch out like the original Worth tab. You could stretch that neck like 3 times the length, and it would never break, but it was of no use because your height on the glue puller wouldn't make it work anymore unless you were using a slide hammer. They didn't have enough glass strands in that plastic. They were just elasticized polymer. Okay, so there's an art and a science to making a tab stick to metal and to paint, and it pull correctly, not stretch the tab, not be so brittle, not have so much glass strands and glass in it that it shatters. So there's a little technology there. I mean, again, we're not landing on the moon or anything, but there is technology behind that. The glue that we got, where hot glue came from for our industry, came out of the stereo and interior installation people. When guys put in stereos, they glue back down your kick plates because they always broke your tabs. They glue down the edge of the carpet where they pull back to run your speaker wire under the inside of the A-pillar, okay? Hot glue came from the stereo installers, okay? And it ended up into the PDR market, and then we specialized it with scientists actually making it dry quicker, pull not as hard, pull a little harder, okay? So there's actually, I hate arguing anymore because I've argued with too many people in my life, and it's been a waste of time. Okay, as you get older, you regret some stuff you've done. But I will say this: people that say that all glue is the same, they do not understand that. Okay, it's not. There are quick setting glues, there are slow setting glues, there are hard setting glues, there are softer setting glues. Okay, so you got to find what you like for your preference. I'm a Hale guy. I want an 8 to 10 second set, which that Black Anson glue does. I like the Kiko tabs because I know they pull hard. I like the PDR outlet tabs, the orange ones, because they pull hard. As far as crease tabs go, I'm not doing big dents anymore, but I messed with Keith Cosentino's Black Plague tabs.
Yeah.
Those things are so wickedly strong, you can wreck a panel if you don't pay attention. And
Yeah.
he has a whole page of instructions telling you how not to be stupid, but you still get stupid because those tabs pull so hard they won't come off the car. So when he says use less glue and use less surface area, he's trying to keep you from doing stupid things because he's created a product that has so much surface tension that it's uncanny how you can barely get those tabs off the car if you over glue it.
Yep. Yep.
So
I agree. I mean, 100% with you about the glue because it definitely makes a big difference. Because I remember pulling, going, gosh, this is not sticking. Like BMWs on the dog legs are really paying for me, and I have to almost like experiment with different glues all the time because it's just different. Like you said, us our door dinger guys, we're in different environments all the time. So, yeah, I have to agree with you about that. Now, I would like to ask you a couple other questions, but Tom, when you're out, and I probably already know the answer to this, but when you're out in the Hale industry and you're doing your glue pulling, do you mainly only pull with a mini lifter, or you pull with a slide hammer, or a little bit of both?
okay, well, again, this question always goes down to people's personal preference, but I'll tell you what I do. You asked me specifically. I'm a Hale guy. 99% of my gluing is done with a mini lifter, the squeeze resistance pullers. Okay, I happen to like the Dent Econo lifter. Okay, I always like it because it's a universal receiver. You can hook tabs from either side. It's not the machined in. It takes different size tabs. I like it. It hooks so many more tabs because, again, I have really found for me, again, I'm not going to lay down the law or there's rules on this, okay? Just for me, I can control the pull more with squeezing and snapping than I can the control of a 2-pound or pound or whatever it is, pound and a half slide hammer. If you've noticed this too, slide hammers have a whole different set time, the window of that glue. If you don't get it off on a small tab quick, it's just that ting, that terrible sound. You're like, oh, what a waste of 20 seconds of my life. You know what I mean? You're like, whereas you notice the glue time when you're using a mini lifter, with that glue being more elastic while you're squeezing, it stays resilient much quicker than snapping. Snapping, that glue gets brittle so quick. So I like the fact you have more leeway in your time set with a mini lifter. I like being able to watch my pull as I'm squeezing and actually watch the metal lift, see how it's responding, especially when you're on a new car or a different area of the metal where it's going to be different than what you were just working. So 99% of the time, if I can get it with a mini lifter, I'm using that now. If I'm using a big, sharp, almost silver dollar or bigger size Hale dent on a rail where it's rigid.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to use a slide hammer because I want to defeat and shock that dent on the very first pull. I want to get it completely inside out. Nothing worse than that puckered, pardon the expression, puckered butthole look when you get a dent, halfway in, halfway out. That's a bad feeling. Okay. Well, slide hammer gives you enough stroke to get about any dent inside out on one pull if you decide to hit the right amount of glue and give it enough juice, okay? So when I'm trying to shock a rigid panel, I always want to defeat it. Look, I'm good with a hammer on the other end, so if I don't care how much extra metal I get on the outside, it's much easier to tap it from the outside than it is trying to trap that little puckered, that awful look you don't want to see, okay? So on a rigid panel, I would use a slide hammer to get it inside out. But on every other softer panel, I'm a mini lifter guy.
Yeah. And I know I've seen you do a lot of mini lifters, some amazing stuff about with your mini lifter. And that brings me to the next topic. Now, I've seen some very impressive videos on YouTube, especially with that one, that crease went right up to the edge, you know. And one thing that stuck with me when I watched that video, when I was average on glue pulling, but I really didn't know enough. But when I saw that video that you did, and I think you and Michael Hand produced it, I'm not sure on that, but one thing, advice that you gave me, or you gave the viewers, is that you said, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to get this dent. You know what? I don't give up. I always get my dent, and I like that because you're persistent. You snapped it. You opened it up. You snapped it. You opened it up. You snapped it. Opened it up, and you got it. You got it. I mean, I don't know how many exactly pulls it was, but I know it was a lot. But you got it, and that gave me. I said, see, if you see somebody that mentally can do it, and then you're out there in the field struggling, you're thinking, God, that damn Tom Price, man, he got it. I better be able to get it. So
yeah, if a fat old man like me can get it, a young, good-looking guy like you can get it, Mike. Let me tell you.
No, and that brings me back to the videos now. Now, obviously you can find your videos, I believe, on what's the website? I know you got some videos out there.
PDRcoach.com, and it's also, I believe, on Dents by Hand, are where the DVDs are for sale. They're older, but the value and content in them is still the same. The theory doesn't change.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The glue pulling ones need to be updated. I am going to try to update those this year. I'm going to try to refilm them so they have more modern glues and more modern tabs and more modern apparatuses. Okay. And I'd like to even show a little bit more cutting edge stuff, starting big dents and understanding stress with glue. Okay. So those need to be updated. Those are a little bit outdated on my behalf. Okay. And, so that's where they can be. You can preview all our stuff on YouTube. There's trailers. You're the king of YouTube. We're probably the second king of YouTube, but I think you probably have more hits and more good stuff on there than anybody I know. So even though we're buddies and we're kind of in the same market, I always watch your stuff, Mike, because you're a dang good tech. So I'm always learning from you.
Thanks, Thomas. Likewise, dude. And we're gonna put some links up to where they can find your videos and Michael Hand's videos there. And hopefully, you and I can work together on a video and and do that. So
let me add one more thing to this, but before we go, I want to back up a little bit. Who really got me interested and who really helped me and who deserves some name recognition on getting me going with glue is Terry Siegel from A-Sten in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Terry was way ahead of the curve in glue before about anybody else in this country was. He had the opportunity, I believe, to go over to Europe and meet that guy at the Auto Mechanica show, him and J.D. Martin from PDQ Tools. They met that guy from Germany they called Dr. Glue, and he was around a long time ago, okay? And so Terry was way ahead of the curve in this 10, 12 years ago, and I really went down to Kansas City when Terry was in our original DVDs, the TNT ones,
yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I got to give credit where credit's due and props and kudos to Terry. He really helped me get started on the ground floor of glue. I just really jumped into it because of my injury and just because it actually kind of reinvigorated my being bored with regular pushing PDR. So, I owe Terry some props on that. And, I remember back when glue, the first smart repair systems I saw out of England, you glued the stick to the car, then you threaded your like a slide hammer, you threaded it into the glue that was already dry, you screwed it in, then you pulled with no mechanical weight on it, just your own arm. That's how you pulled the dents back on the very first glue pulling, and a big, thick piece of glue. I mean, like a big candle-sized piece of glue.
Yeah.
It was archaic, but it was still pretty amazing then. Then what out came the kind that, Ding King made famous, the Popsodent type with the little rubber tab with the screw, and you snapped it by hand. You may remember seeing those. And then some of us got smart, and we put a 10-millimeter nut on it and hit it off a drill, and we thought we were, like, way ahead of the Neanderthals that were doing it by hand. We're like, wow, we got a drill attached to it. And then here we are years later. I look back, and I go, we've come a long way. I remember doing stuff, too, even back in your early pushing days, we used to have to beat tools into panels to get to the dent and then fix the snail trail that was a foot long.
Exactly.
My kids look at me today and they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, dude, we didn't have tools that went behind this brace. We took a hammer and beat a tool down into the brace in the door, fix the dent and then beat down a 6-inch snail trail. And then if we over tapped it wrong, have to shove another tool in, leave a high spot, and tap it down. I mean, really, to be real honest, PDR is a lot easier today than it was 20 years ago.
That's what I tell my students. I said, you guys don't have no idea how much easier it is. You know,
we used to have to create terrible damage to fix damage. My kids look at me and go like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, I took Gojo, I took a heated whale tail, beat it with a hammer down into a brace on a Chrysler.
I was going to say that. I was going to say Chrysler.
To fix the dent and 45 minutes to fix the mess, and they look at me like I'm an alien. I'm like, that's what PDR was. So even glue has come a long way with the better glues, the better tabs, the better pullers, everything about it. The people have taken the slide hammers and made them where they're cushioned now instead of snapping. And I mean, it's just little things that guys come up with, and they make our life a little easier, you know. So kudos go out to a lot of people. You know, I want to give you kudos too. You're like the nicest PDR guy there is. You're like the Switzerland of PDR guys. You're politically neutral, and but what I like about you, Mike, is you have enthusiasm for what you do. And even an old guy like me now, I've kind of gotten by you and John Hiley stuff and Shane and Keith stuff. You guys kind of got me like reinvigorated back into thinking a little more on a marketing end. And, you know, I used to think that the best tech always won. That's not really true. You got to have the whole package. You got to know how to market yourself as a businessman. You got to know how to stay ahead of your competitor. You got to know how sometimes not to worry about your competitor. But you guys, I want to give all you guys, all you younger guys that, you know, you think a little bit outside the box, and perhaps you can teach an old dog like me new tricks. And you kind of got me reinvigorated, interested in PDR again, because you guys are ruthless at your marketing. And so I've learned a lot from you guys, and I just kind of wanted to give you guys some little bit of props by name there for kind of getting me kind of re-interested in this business. And I'm like, you know, there's good things you can do. You know, we don't all have to hate each other. We can help each other. And, you know, so there's a lot in education. I've always kind of poured a lot into that. But in the last few years, I've gotten kind of cynical, just kind of like, I'm just kind of sick of this business. But now I've figured out this, you know, you got to find a niche in this market. We can't all be dealer guys. We can't all be hail guys. We can't all be whatever, okay? But you need to find a niche, and you need to go for it. And, you know, you found a great niche. You are like the marketing guru of PDR. You're like the SEO guru of PDR. I mean, so I just want to say, look, there's all kinds of people that bring stuff to the game. I just want to thank you and some of the younger guys thinking outside the box with this education, and kind of got my mind getting fruitful again, kind of thinking, well, maybe I should try to do a little bit and try to maybe add a little bit more to this industry. So I just wanted to thank you for that on a personal note.
Well, thanks, Tom, and thanks for mentioning Terry Siegel too. I think, in matter of fact, I'm going to be giving him a contact call and see if he's willing to do some stuff. And you know what, he's one of them. It's off topic again, but going back to Terry Siegel, man, it's like you would never know that guy had skill. You know, there's just he's so undercover and so, like, you know, humble and just like not mouthy and, like, you know, he's just not flamboyant at all. You know, just you never tell. But yeah, definitely props to him.
He's a wealth of knowledge. I mean, he's a wealth. He like you said, he stays behind the scenes, but that guy's sharp, man. I mean, there's a lot going on behind that kind of still composure. So
yeah. Well, Tom, I just want to wrap it up, but you know, thanks for taking your time on a Sunday. That's when we're doing this interview, and you know, what you said. You said a few things that I wasn't even aware of, and it's really helpful, and I'm sure the viewers that will find this as well helpful. So, thanks again for joining me, Tom.
Thanks for taking the time, Mike. Good luck to you. Hope to see you out there.
Okay, Tom. Take care.
All right.